I'm here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
I knew you were going to do that.
I love that quote. I love this movie. It is the most 80s movie of all 80s movies. I love it so.
I was going to look up who said it backwards. I think it was in a show or a movie. I'm here to chew ass and kick gum, and I'm all out of gum.
That is a joke from the Duke Nukem Forever game, I think. Which, weird, but yeah, Duke Nukem 3D is why I know this movie existed. It's great.
Ah.
Yes.
I just like sunglasses.
Sunglasses are also cool.
Yeah?
So, welcome to the Film Club. I'm Dean. This is,
Miss Boo?
Miss Boo. There you go. And every month we pick a new theme. We do a mini-series on it. This month we are doing the filmography of John Carpenter. And this week we are doing...
They Live.
Yes, we are. This is the end of our John Carpenter month. This is the culmination of Carpenter's immaculate run of the 1980s.
Yes.
And yeah, this movie's a banger. It's a great, great movie. Stars Roddy Piper, Keith David, comes out in 1988.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're rounding up the 80s, just like we're rounding up this, month of John Carpenter.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about buff Roddy Piper.
Yeah, not like, a Herculean physique like a Rock or an Arnold Schwarzenegger, but a buff dude. This is a movie about dudes doing like dude stuff.
Like rolling around in an alley.
And beating each other up. Which
because he won't put the sunglasses on.
They have I wanted to time it, but it has to be like 5-10 minutes.
I felt tired by the time this fight was over.
I know! It keeps going. They have a break halfway through to like catch their breath, and then they just go back to fighting each other.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I mean, that's how I kind of felt. I feel like when I'm trying to get you to use hand sanitizer, I feel like this is kind of the fight, me trying to grab your hand, and you're like, no.
Oh god, your obsession with hand sanitizing everything.
I mean, I like my hands to be clean when we're out and about.
You wash your hands 5 times a day.
More.
Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, so we're talking about They Live. This is the final movie of the run. I think it's pretty known by now that John Carpenter had the best 80s of any director.
Yeah.
It's like 10 movies, each from like Assault on Precinct 13 all the way to They Live. It's like 10 or 12 movies, and each and every one of them is good to a masterpiece. Like, Assault on Precinct 13 follows that up Halloween, follows that up with The Fog, follows that up with Escape from New York, then The Thing, Christine, Starman. It's solid. It's solid across the board.
And you didn't want to talk about The Fog.
We're gonna get to The Fog, because I guess a hint, probably next year or some month, like whenever we get the feeling, I want to do the other half of the John Carpenter run. The movies we've missed and haven't done on the podcast, and the few of his 90s that are good. I think there's like one or two good ones after They Live. I swear, officer. But
I mean, I'm down. Yeah. I love John Carpenter.
Me too. Like, the guy, I think he is probably one of the best filmmakers to come out of this era of filmmaking. Like, that post-New Hollywood, but like, independent cinema boom of the 1990s with, like, Tarantino, Kevin Smith, where all those guys came out of. But, so I'm excited.
Me too. Anytime we get to talk about John Carpenter, I will be very, very happy. But let's talk about it. Yes,
let's do. Do you want the context, like how we got here to They Live?
Sure.
Okay, so last week we did Starman. That was his run at doing a non-Carpenter film.
It broke us in half. My God. Just thinking about that movie, I was just like...
It's
so many feels.
It's so cute. It's got drama. It's got comedy. And it's really romantic. It's a really nice movie.
Yeah.
And Starman comes out. It's not a box office sensation, but it makes enough money to where they're like, okay, we can make everything else back on TV. And the other end of that was, it was a critical success.
Yeah.
It's Jeff Bridges nominated for an Oscar, the only film in Carpenter's canon that's nominated for any Oscar. And, all the critics loved it. For the first time since Halloween, all the critics came to a consensus that Starman was a good movie. And so Carpenter saying, look, I made Christine, which was a box office hit. I made Starman, that was a critical hit. I want to make one for me. I'm going to push all my chips in again, just like The Thing. He's like, I want to make my movie. And he makes Big Trouble in Little China.
Your all-time favorite.
I love that movie. It's probably in my top, 15, 20 favorite movies of all time. I can put that movie on at any point and enjoy it. It is the most entertaining movie of all time, and it's the best movie ever made while you're watching it. It's great.
I know Pork Chop.
Pork Chop and Espresso, your old pal Jack Burton. But he makes Big Trouble in Little China. It bombs.
Yeah.
It comes out. It is decades ahead of its time. If you look at Big Trouble in Little China, Kurt Russell would fit in perfectly as Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy 20 years later.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt's basically just doing a Kurt Russell riff through all of his career.
And then, he comes in as Star-Lord's dad, which, ego, which makes total sense.
Do you know about that? Okay, Kurt Russell, he had never seen any of the Marvel movies, but they wanted him to, be in, Guardians of the Galaxy. And he's like, all right, fine, I haven't really seen him, I'll watch the Guardians movie. And he watched it, and he's like, oh, this guy, he's just doing what I was doing in the 80s. He's doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
He's a guy that looks like a movie star, looks like a leading man, but he's a buffoon. And that's Big Trouble in Little China.
Mm-hmm.
So it being ahead of the curve and all this other stuff means people at the time fucking hated it. Gets shelved, done. Carpenter throws up his hands. He says, you know what? I've been burned by Hollywood one too many times. I'm going to go back to make independent movies with blackjack and hookers and, whatever.
And cool sunglasses.
But the first movie he makes with Alive Films, that's the production company, he makes Prince of Darkness, which is the second part of his Apocalypse trilogy. It's his unofficial movie trilogy with The Thing and Mouth of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
And that one's it makes money. $3 million budget makes $15 million. Oh, okay, that's good. Because Carpenter had a contract with them. He can come in with a one-sentence synopsis, and they will greenlight anything he has. But the issue, it has to be cheap as hell. $3 million, and that's pretty much it. So he's like, well, maybe we'll make one more, and this one's going to be a scathing critique of the Reagan administration.
Reaganomics.
Yep. And makes They Live, which brings us here. Yeah, the only reason we didn't do Prince of Darkness is because, we have to do They Live, right?
Yeah.
It is the most iconic.
It is. It's a movie we've both seen before, because Prince of Darkness, that was going to be another movie we've never seen.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's kind of hard to do, his run.
And not do the actual end, and, his... Is this his number one most iconic movie? It's this and Halloween are, neck and neck, right? Because Halloween's big.
The Thing, The Fog.
No, he has iconic movies, but I mean, if I showed somebody a still frame of Rowdy Roddy Piper with the sunglasses and the shotgun, everyone's gonna get that, or the Obey thing. Everyone's gonna get that.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, that was also really, popular in high school. When we got the Banksy and the Obey on everything.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of people are oh, this just looks cool, and it's no, this is John Carpenter.
Yeah.
It's which is also cool, but it's you're not understanding the reference.
Yeah, that's a thing about this movie, because I don't know if this movie ever went away. Because I feel I used to see this on TV a lot. Because this one, a lot of John Carpenter movies, it made money. It wasn't a big critical hit, which, yeah, I feel the critics just don't understand John Carpenter.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, magnificent movies that are out there that get snubbed by the critics, and it's just no, this is a fantastic movie. I think you're just, a little full of yourself, or you're a little into the job that you can't really let yourself enjoy these movies or really take them in.
Well, the problem with that is I almost feel they just didn't get it. Because, again, I have a couple of people I believe it was Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. I believe it was them. They were like, "Oh, John Carpenter making another genre effects action movie with no depth. It's not saying anything. It's just trying to get you to buy popcorn." And I'm like,
No,
"Did they watch the movie?"
That's why I feel like, they must have just kind of like, okay, we got our screener, okay, put it in, and I'm gonna, work on a couple of other things while I'm watching this, because there is so much depth and substance to this movie, where I had to put the phone down to make sure that I could, completely focus on this and, absorb everything, because there's a lot going on versus, oh, okay, he's out there fighting these weird alien creatures. That's not even till, the middle, maybe past the middle of this film, that we actually get, a lot of the action.
Mm.
A lot of it is him discovering this world and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, and it is a really compelling... Like, the first half of this movie is great. It is super compelling. We have Rowdy Piper playing John Nada, and, I'm just gonna give everybody the quick, synopsis thing. The back of the box real quick. So, the synopsis. Everyday drifter John Nada comes into contact with a secret alien invasion when he discovers a pair of sunglasses that allow him to see who really rules the world. He teams up with fellow down-on-his-luck drifter Frank and goes on a violent revolt to stop the invasion, reveal the truth, and save the day. Or die trying. That's like the back-of-the-box synopsis.
I'm sorry. That just reminded me of that church that we drove past in Burbank this past weekend.
Yes, yeah, Get Busy or... That was an Obey movie.
No, it wasn't Get Busy. We were driving past this church, and they had the sign out in front of the church. Mass starts at 7, that kind of sign.
Or it's like a Bible quote or something.
Yeah, a verse or something. And I just happened to look, and it says, "Get rich or die trying." And I was just like, whoa, middle school me was just like, oh my god, 50 Cent is on this sign. I can't believe it. But yeah, it was, total kind of foreshadowing us going into this, movie, because it's everywhere. And I'd forgotten a lot of the signs that, are showed throughout the movie. Because it's, obviously the iconic one is the obey sign.
Obey, submit, this is your God, that's written on your money.
Watch TV,
sleep.
Marry and procreate. And it was just like, oh yeah, it's like I forgot that there was a lot of good symbolism that they used, and it was just like, obviously if you're, asleep like they want you to be, of course you're going to conform to all these things that they want you to do, versus being awake. And, no, I'm going to think for myself. I'm not going to have you think for me.
Yeah, that's the thing about this movie, which is why I feel like, I don't know if critics just didn't get it, or they couldn't see the forest through the trees, is the whole movie's a takedown on consumerism, takedown on, capitalism, takedown on the rampant excess of the 1980s. Everyone's conforming, and everyone's just, they're losing all individuality, because they all want to be the rich yuppie with the $5,000 suit, the $400,000 Rolex, and the fancy car, the big house. It's all...
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, that we're still dealing with today, where everyone wants to be rich and famous and successful.
Everyone wants to sell out. Everyone wants the sponsorship.
Yes.
Which,
if anyone wants to sponsor us, I mean,
we're really willing to sell out over here. Please.
Not completely, but, something.
I'll sell out a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit of help.
Oh, God, that's... Have you seen this? It's like a trend on YouTube and TikTok where these teenagers pretend they're sponsored, and they'll plug products that they're not sponsored by.
Oh no, it's not just teenagers. There's a reality show, I'm not going to name it, that I watch, and one of the people on there that has, since been fired, he got in trouble because he was posting these paid sponsorship posts on his Instagram, and the companies were like, no, we never paid you, we never agreed to do this with you, you gotta take this down. And it's just like, yeah, I get what you're trying to do, you're trying to put, a little bit more money in your pocket, take care of your family, but it's not worth all the legal drama.
Well, the other thing is, he's plugging stuff, but he's not getting paid for it. It's almost like a status thing. That's the thing about this. Because this comes out in 88, and you remember the whole thing in the 60s and 70s was conformity was death, don't trust anyone over 30, and then, Reagan gets elected, and
Well,
everyone's like, "Oh, I guess we sold out. I guess
well,
we're
I think you mean I remember from history class
yes,
because
history class.
because we're not
We're not even
that
close to
old.
being that old.
No,
Oh
no.
yeah.
So no, I don't remember that firsthand, but yeah, I get what you're throwing out there.
I mean, that was the whole thing that Carpenter has said this ever since the movie came out. This was his battle cry, his just primal scream against Reaganomics. He hated the fact that Ronald Reagan had basically turned America into this like shallow corporate America. We weren't run by politicians, we were run by corporations, and yeah, that's kind of the same thing now.
Yeah.
Our lives are controlled by, Google, Microsoft, Apple. Not a politics podcast, by the way, just stating what's in the movie. And it's not trying to be subtle. It's really open with it.
No, it's like right smack in your face.
Yeah, like he looks up at the president making a speech and he's like, "Huh, figures." And yeah, alien, your president's an alien.
Yeah.
Totally looking to try and turn the world into this third world country over resources. Like, oh, of course, yeah. It's not trying to be subtle at all.
No. So, I think maybe with the critics, could just be a thing where they were stacked, with movies they had to watch, and this is, a different time versus, where you could, like, bring your laptop with you. It's a little bit more accessible to get things done versus back then where it's like, okay, well, I gotta take notes, and then I gotta go to, this next screening, and well, maybe that's how this kind of slipped through the cracks, or people didn't really comprehend.
It's every critic says this. Every critic. It's the thing where I really feel like at the time they couldn't see the forest through the trees. They were like, we are in this corporate America, and then he's making this alien invasion movie, and it's like, well, okay. There's a quote that John Carpenter, a story he likes telling about when he's pitching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really encapsulates the time that this comes out and really gets the point of this movie across. So John Carpenter, he goes and pitches the movie to Universal.
Yeah.
Because Alive Films, they are a small production company, but Universal owns them and distributes all their movies. So he's pitching this to one of the executives at Universal, and the executive is like, that's not scary. He's like, what do you mean? These people are, buying and selling our souls, basically, and he's like, and the executive is like, I don't get it. We all sell out every day. Don't you want to have a part of it? And John Carpenter says, after I heard that, I put it into the movie because it summed it up. Yeah, well, because that's the thing. At the time, you got to remember, when people voted Reagan in, they were like, well, now at least we're going to try and get our piece of the pie kind of thing. And it basically threw all the 70s out the window, threw all the 60s out, threw the revolution out the window. They went back to all-American Ronald Reagan and his little cowboy hat. And
it was a cute little cowboy hat.
He was a charming guy. One of these days, we're going to have to do the shitty, Ronald Reagan comedies from the 50s.
And we're just going to be talking about how handsome he was. Because that man is handsome.
Young Ronald Reagan?
Oh, yeah.
Is young Ronald Reagan good looking?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Even older, distinguished. I'm like, okay, you're good looking.
You're just like, up until the dementia, he probably could have got it.
No, it would have to be young 50s, that TV movie with James Dean, yeah.
Oh God, he was in a movie with James Dean?
Yeah, he was. Like a after-school special kind of movie.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, does Ronald Reagan play James Dean's dad? And he's like, come here, son, let me tell you about the old American way. And James Dean is like, no, Dad, good. I just want James Dean to be the original emo boy. I want to have the fringe going on.
The kid and life is a nightmare.
You have to sing it loud if you want the people to hear that. Oh, but that's oh my God, that's glorious.
Oh yeah, I thought you knew that they had done just like a small kind of special movie together. I don't even know what they're called, like after school special or PSA movie, like something like that. Yeah.
Well, I just knew he did a movie with a chimp. I knew that was his big movie. He did it with a chimpanzee, and it was a bringing up baby riff. That's all I know about it, but
that I don't know. I know that there's a movie with Cary Grant and Marilyn Monroe where I think there's a chimp or there's chimps in the movie because Cary Grant's a scientist, and there's like a serum, and him and the chimp, like, they kind of like switch brains. So the chimp's able to talk, and Cary Grant is just like going nuts, and Marilyn has to like wrangle him in. There's a lot of good movies from the 50s we need to review.
Well, the problem is there's a lot of good quote unquote good movies.
Yeah, I'm like, they can't see you through the microphone.
I realize this. There's a lot of quote unquote good movies of the 50s, but there's a lot more just ridiculous movies that make no sense, but they are fascinatingly bad. Like, they are like, you were able to make this? Somebody gave you money for this movie?
Even today. It's like,
well, it's different today, because like now it's like, oh, well, we'll just put it on streaming, we'll make the money back on residuals, just play forever. Back then it was like, we'll play it for 3 weeks at a drive-in in Tulsa, and that'll make us just $15 over budget, but it'll be over budget. And I'm like, what the fuck are you making? It's like Plan 9 from Outer Space. I'm like, I don't know how Ed Wood got money for that movie.
It's Ed Wood, though.
God. So, but yeah, so they live. So yeah, that's like John Carpenter's entire crux of the movie, is that it's his cry against Reaganomics, it's his cry against the era. He's basically, his entire career has been wrapped up in this very corporatized medium, like Hollywood became a studio town again after the 70s. So he's like, this is his, kind of like big middle finger to America. And
I see where you're going there.
Exactly. And for this big middle finger to America, he casts not an actor, but a professional wrestler in Rowdy Roddy Piper. Yes.
We love some Rowdy Roddy Piper.
He's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where he's not a great actor. He's not like he's not, gonna do Othello or anything like that. But for the role in this movie, he is pitch perfect.
Yeah.
He is great in this. Like, and this is his first movie. Like, he'd done wrestling for decades at that point. But, my God, there's a monologue in here where I'm like, oh, Rowdy Roddy Piper, you're emoting now? My God, this Oscar clip, boys, Oscar clip.
Are you okay? You look like you're clutching your pearls over there.
I
do declare,
he is
that Rowdy Roddy.
He is surprisingly good.
He is, yeah.
Because, like, you gotta think, 1988, who are the other pro wrestlers trying to act right now? It's fucking Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, like, all the other wrestlers trying to be actors are fucking awful.
Yeah.
You sound so sad. Did you like Suburban Commando? It's Santa with muscles. Did you like those ones?
No, I liked, Macho Man in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I got you in the cage for 7 minutes!
It's for 3 minutes!
I don't know. I mean, just looking at the two of them, like, it's gonna feel like an eternity.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They bring Macho Man in to play a pro wrestler for a cameo. Rowdy Roddy Piper is playing a character, and he's the lead role of a John Carpenter film. John Carpenter's hanging the movie on this guy.
I mean, this is my second time seeing the movie. So a lot of, there's still a lot of open pockets of things that I had forgotten. And I was still waiting for him to cut a promo. I was kind of hopeful. I'm like...
Oh, he's cutting promos all over the place.
I'm like, let's get, a promo, let's, get some fireworks. Really make it feel like we're, at a match.
Yeah, I mean, when he says, looks like you stepped in the cheese dip in 1957.
That was pretty great.
Yeah, it's like... Man, you're so ugly, the backside of a dog would be more appealing to kiss. Like, he's throwing some bangers out there. And this is the thing. Rowdy Roddy Piper, he's actually, like, acting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because, like, The Rock now, who's, like... He's...
A superstar?
He's a superstar, but, like, he's playing The Rock in every movie. For the most part, like, sometimes he's sad Rock, sometimes he's serious Rock, but he's The Rock. He's not playing Othello anytime soon.
Or he's just playing my favorite Rock, because I've loved The Rock since...
A small child.
Yes, since the WWF days.
Back in the glory days.
Yes.
Back in the all or nothing days.
The reason why I know how to arch my eyebrow.
Yes, we know.
I'm so proud. Thank you, Rock.
But that's just something interesting, because What do you think of Roddy Piper in the movie?
Great set of hair.
That 80s mullet.
Oh my god. That thing needs like a slow-mo montage of just his hair, floating in the air.
What are you even talking about?
He's an attractive man. But also, I'm kind of used to like WWE Roddy Piper, in the later years. So
Yeah.
seeing him be like this mountain of a man, it's just like, oh my god, you're huge.
I wanted to bring that up because he doesn't look like a normal movie star or a normal leading man of this era or now.
No.
Because he's big, he's in shape, but he's not like so ridiculous that, oh, like, that's impossible. He's not Arnold Schwarzenegger,
No.
he's not The Rock, he doesn't look like, oh, you have the body of somebody who all I do is eat chicken and work out.
Yeah.
He looks like somebody, oh, you got big, like, working.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a face that's, like, yeah, he's a handsome, like, good-looking guy, but he's not pretty.
No.
He doesn't look like Ryan Gosling or Jake Gyllenhaal, where it's like, oh, those are pretty men.
Very pretty.
Yeah, you're like, oh, he's so pretty. But his face has, like, scars on it. You can see he's, like, a little roughed up.
Yeah, it's convincing of his character. I'm like, I could believe that you're just, down on your luck and, yeah, I could work in this construction yard, I've done this, I've done that. It's very believable that he could be just an everyday kind of guy.
Yeah. And I think the thing that John Carpenter saw in him is he felt real. Because Roddy Piper, he did an interview during the making of the movie where they asked him, he's like, so how do you feel about your character? And he's like, me and John Nott are basically the same guy. He's like, oh, I ran away when I was like 13. I started being a professional fighter at 15. He's like, I've been stabbed 3 times. I broke my back. I broke my pelvis. He's like, I've worked every day for like 5 years in like a very high impact profession. Like, he's talking about his life, and it's like, yeah, you are the guy who's just lived the roughest life, who just keeps on keeping on, because that's just who you are.
Yeah.
And that paired up with the fact that John Carpenter looks at him, and because John Carpenter meets him at WrestleMania 3.
Oh.
Yeah, another fact. John Carpenter, huge wrestling fan. He's at WrestleMania 3. He meets Alice Cooper, who he convinces to help him do Prince of Darkness.
Okay.
And he meets Roddy Piper, and he's like, oh, this guy's perfect for my other movie, They Live.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he talks to Roddy Piper for, I don't know, a little bit, and he's like, this guy is so fucking tough. He looks and he carries himself like a guy you can hit with a truck, and he'd keep on going.
Yeah, I just get up, brush himself off, and all right, you want me to fight the truck next? I'll fight the truck.
He is so convincing that when he gets thrown out of a 3-story building down a hill and crawls his ass back to downtown LA from the Beverly Hills, I'm like, he could do it. He's fine. He can keep on going.
I mean, he's also convincing of like, I'm in physical pain. I was just like, there's a tons of action movies where people are thrown, hit by cars, ridiculous things, and they get up and they kind of brush themselves off and they walk away. It's like, you are so good at acting, and you may have also hurt yourself in that scene because it's just so convincing of, you just threw me out of a window and down a hillside.
Yeah. Well, that one was a stunt. They had a stunt double do the jump, but when he's rolling down the hill, I'm pretty sure that's Piper. The one that's all him is the fight between him and Keith David's character, Frank.
Yeah, I mean, we watched that, what was it, Robert Rodriguez's, like his internet show that he had where he was with directors.
It's, I think it's called The Director's Chair. I think it's on the El Rey Network. He interviews directors. He's done
YouTube.
Or YouTube, yeah. He interviews directors. He's done Guillermo del Toro, Quentin Tarantino, and he did one with John Carpenter. Because Robert Rodriguez has wanted to make Escape from New York since he started making movies.
Yeah.
And they're talking about the fight scene. And it doesn't give it justice in a clip show because the fight is, like, again, 10 minutes long.
Yeah.
And when we watched it for the movie, they are going for it. And I love it because it's like, it's Roddy Piper and Keith David just choreographed the whole fight by themselves.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about Keith David real quick, because Keith David, we haven't seen him since The Thing, and he is phenomenal. He is so good in this movie. He is super believable.
He's funny.
He's funny. He's funny as hell. He plays no nonsense. He's like, you are a fucking crazy person. I don't want none of business. And he seems like the person, when they get into the fight in the alley, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be a good one. Because Keith David's fucking huge. I didn't realize this watching The Thing, because he's, you know, a more, like, thin kind of guy in The Thing. But in this, I'm like, bro, like,
He bulked up.
You fighting heavyweight? Like, and it's great, because he's also, like, a Juilliard-trained actor and all these other things. And I think when John Carpenter was writing it, he wrote the character of Frank specifically for Keith David.
Definitely.
Because it fits so clean.
But like I was saying about that documentary, he talks about the script, and he said that there was at least 4 or 5 pages where it just said fight. That was it, and they just kept going and going.
The page. Fight continues.
Yeah, and it was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna hand it off to them, and they'll figure it out. You know, Roddy, he's used to this. He can choreograph. Keith David just tell him, okay, you know, give me some ideas, and we'll.
Well, Keith David, he had, like, boxing training.
Yeah.
He had, like, amateur boxing training. He did, like, dance and movement training at Juilliard. So he wasn't a stranger to, like, choreography and moving his body and working. And Roddy Piper, he'd been a wrestler for, like, decades at that point. So it's one of these things where, you know, them and the stunt coordinator, Piper's working down to meet Keith David, and Keith David's working up to meet Piper.
Yeah.
And it works so well, because the fight, it's so fucking simple. Roddy Piper wants Frank to put on the glasses. And Keith David is like, no, you're fucking crazy. And they just brawl. And it keeps going. And it's a fight that you feel these guys taking the beating. I have not seen a fight like this good since. Because you know how you watch, like, action movies now? Usually they're, like, really over choreographed, or there's a lot of CG going on, or they're like, you know, oh, we're getting, like, 2 great martial artists, Jackie Chan, Jet Li, we're gonna have them throw. And it's like, well, it's really impressive, but I don't feel like they're hurting each other. I don't feel like this is a brawl or a fight. They're not slugging it out.
It's art. It's fight, you know, art, basically. I mean, just seeing, you know, oh, okay, I've never seen that move before. Look at him kind of, you know, glide through the air, you know, look at this cool hit. This one, it's like, no, you feel it. You feel like you're in that alley with them, just taking hit after hit, getting thrown into the concrete. I mean, let alone seeing the back of Frank's head after John is just hitting his head into the cement, and it's just like, it's just exposed, you know, skin and possible bone. I'm like,
oh, that big bloody gunk on the back of his head, and the fucking wound effects afterwards.
Yeah.
Where they carry that for, like, the next couple of scenes or, like, the rest of the movie. It is so good. Like, they look like they got into a fight, and it's awesome, and it's over something so petty as, please, put these sunglasses on.
I mean, let alone they even threw in, like, a dude moment in there when John breaks the back of Frank's the window in the back of his car.
Yeah.
His rear window.
And he's like, oh man, he's
laughing too. He's like, oh dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to break your window.
Well no, the thing is, like, the fight starts escalating, and then Roddy Piper's like, swings the board, and he, like, smashes. He's like, oh, I was about to really hurt you, man. I'm sorry. I didn't mean I was gonna really hurt you. And then Frank is like, oh, it's on, and smashes a bottle, and the bottle just disintegrates in his hand. Like, I love that. Like, the best is, like, oh, Frank finally gets the upper hand. He goes, and, like, oh, Roddy Piper's on the floor. He's hurting. And Frank goes off and, like, catches his breath. And you're like, oh, so that's the end of the fight. And then Roddy Piper walks in out of frame and just keeps going.
Yeah.
You got another 5 minutes, boys.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it so much. It just keeps going and going it goes from being, oh, this is a serious fight, to its parody, and it's so funny.
I was ready to lay on the floor after that fight, be like, you know what, I need to take a breather too, because, man, they just put me through the ringer with this fight.
Oh, so good. So good.
And then he finally puts the glasses on.
And then he's like, I guess I'm in. That's it. I'm in.
It's not even, yeah, maybe I should have put the glasses on like 10 minutes ago.
Speaking of putting the glasses on 10 minutes ago, can we talk about the first time Piper puts the glasses on?
Yeah, I think that's kind of important.
Because it's like the best directed scene John Carpenter's ever done.
Well, I mean, without him putting the glasses on, we wouldn't have a movie.
We also wouldn't have a fight.
Yeah. So he puts the glasses on.
Oh, come on. He just puts the glasses on. When he puts it on, he's like confused, takes them off. And then it's that switch between color and black and white. And like the effects coming in where you have to have a body double jump in to play the guy with the alien makeup on.
And that was also something we picked up from Robert Rodriguez's documentary his interview with John Carpenter, where, all the times that we saw the aliens, it was only one person that was portraying the alien. It wasn't multiple people. I guess it was just a thing where it might have been too expensive to like reproduce those masks for the movie. But the person that was in the costume, it was a thing where it fit him just perfectly, and I was like, well, yeah, we'll just, dress him up as a woman for this scene. We'll double him if he needs to be like a couple, which was kind of cool if he could be, well, I was, the alien that was all these characters in this movie.
Well, what it was the stunt coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same stunt coordinator he had on Big Trouble in Little China.
Mm-hmm.
He brought him over for They Live. And John Carpenter realized, he's like, you're on set every day anyway. I don't need to pay another actor to wear this. Like, why would that matter? Like, you fit the makeup. Like, just put it on and we'll just use you the whole time. Because John Carpenter is great with making a ham sandwich budget look like a blockbuster.
And you love ham sandwiches.
Ham sandwiches are great. Ham sandwich, a little bit of mustard, put some Miracle Whip on there, get some nice pepper jack cheese.
Sorry, you lost me at the Miracle Whip. But, yeah, I mean, it's smart, just to kind of cut corners, save some money. And, I mean, the flex for that, stunt coordinator, where it's just like, yo, all those people, that was me.
It's wonderful. It is wonderful. This movie is wonderful. So what was your top scene of the movie watching it?
Oh, it's probably going to be that first scene where he's just walking through downtown.
Oh, and that desolation of everything, like the opening of the movie, right?
No, when he puts the glasses on for the first time. And, because, I mean, that, opening scene where he's got basically everything that he owns on his back, and he's just kind of, wandered in and trying to figure, where am I going to work? Where am I going to eat? Yeah, that's important, but him putting on the glasses for the first time and just walking around and seeing magazines, seeing the billboards, and just seeing how, without them, everything is beautiful. It's kind of like a reverse Wizard of Oz, where, we go in from sepia to color. And this movie, it's like, no, we're going to go backwards, and we're going to make the world look very drab and dry and kind of sad.
You're going to see the truth.
Yeah. Truth is out there, man.
Exactly. I think that is the best scene. One of the best scenes in the movie. My personal favorite, it's when it's right after the fight scene when Keith David and Roddy Piper, they go to the hotel to like figure out their game plan, and Piper gives this monologue about his past and like how downtrodden, how beat down he's been by life. And I think that is his best performance in the movie, and probably his best performance in his career, his best moment. Because it's like, in that moment, I'm like, oh, I completely understand why you are who you are, why you feel this is not just like a danger because they're invading, but a betrayal of the American dream you were sold on.
Yeah.
And it is a perfectly done performance in that moment. It is wonderful. But, and then the second half of the movie.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, is that the elephant in the room?
Yeah, because, I mean, the first half is just like, holy crap, who can you trust? And then...
Banger moment, banger moment, banger moment.
Yeah, especially when you see him spending more and more time with the glasses on, and then you see, the hardworking people, like, the guy that's selling the magazines, when they walk into the hotel that's basically kind of there for, like, the homeless,
Mhm.
and seeing all the homeless people, and, they're real people. They're not, these imposters that have come in. It's like, I kind of like that we're able to see, who's authentic,
Phony.
who's phony. I mean, it's also kind of cool to be like, oh my god, there they are, and then
There they
they,
are.
and then with their fancy, Rolexes that get them out of trouble.
Yeah, and Roddy Piper going around kicking ass, chewing bubble gum, taking names.
I'll get names later. But I'm gonna chew some bubble gum right now.
Yeah. And then but it's the thing where the first half is great, and
Yeah.
the second half is good. It's just sloppy because like, okay, Frank and Nada, they go to the headquarters, the people who make the glasses, and while there, Meg Foster's character Holly, who I just realized we didn't mention her, but she's in 2 scenes before this.
Yeah, he
kidnaps a woman to like get him away from the bank he just shot up full of aliens, right?
Yeah, but also I think what's kind of creative with that scene is we see her from the back for the first time, and she's dressed, very nicely, so you assume she's one of them, and then she turns and looks at him, and like, oh no, she's not. We can't, here we are lumping her in with the other wealthy people of this movie who are the imposters, and it's like, oh, okay, we can trust her. And he kidnaps her, and then she's the reason why he gets, thrown out of a window.
Third-story window.
And then, down a hillside. But you're like, but, we could see her face, so she's good. Until we figure out she's an imposter too, damn it.
She is another one of the sellouts. And that's the thing. They get to the meeting, Holly finds them, she plays along with Piper and David, or Nada and Frank.
Yeah.
I keep switching between their character name and actor.
It happens.
Yeah. And then they get attacked by the police, and then coincidentally they are able to get one of the teleportation watches to work, and it transports them directly to the one satellite that's beaming the subliminal messages around the world, and that's at this TV station that Holly happens to work at, where they run into her, where she just so happens to be armed and kills Frank and kills Piper right after he blows up everything, which saves the day. But
can we discuss that we see the soldiers that are, protecting the tunnels of, this other world, and they've got the prop from Ghostbusters.
Yeah, it is literally like, what is the ecto detector or whatever it is?
It's something. I wanted to say EKG, but that's for your heart. But it's something. If you see it, it's, basically detects the ghosts. And I'm like, you guys didn't even, like, try to, like,
hide the prop.
We'll doctor it up. I mean, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's Ghostbusters. And then I went and looked on, IMDb, and they're like, oh yeah, they used, this prop from Ghostbusters. And made it, very obvious that is the prop from Ghostbusters. I was just like...
That's the thing with, like, these John Carpenter movies is he'll use anything in hand. He's a scrappy filmmaker.
I was just like, are we getting ghosts next? Are the tunnels haunted?
No, the aliens are ghosts. That's why they look like skulls, right?
Maybe, because I was thinking, once the, what was it, the port that opened up and they jumped into it, I was like, okay, like, you gotta, put in the Super Mario music when they go, like, into the tunnels. And I'm like, are we gonna get King Boo at the end of the tunnel? Is that who, like, the main villain of the movie really is?
Oh, God.
The main boss?
That would be interesting. It's the thing where the second half of the movie just feels really loose. It feels like, I can only bring this in at, like, 90 minutes. I got, like, another, like, 45 pages. Okay, I'll cut 15 pages out and we'll just kind of, like, smooth it together. It just feels like there's, like, 15 minutes missing from the last half of the movie. That... It doesn't make it bad. The movie's not bad. It's very good. It's very fun.
Yeah.
It's just... Man, that's, like, the one flaw is the second half, or, like, that third act just feels rushed.
Yeah, a little goofy, too.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I was hoping
with the George Buckflower guy explaining the whole plot of the movie.
Well, not only him, but like once we walk into the banquet scene, everyone looks human. I expected because they're wearing the contacts. I thought we were gonna see everybody, just a sea full of people as they are, the true aliens. But it's like you've got the one guy being the alien, so it makes sense they can't do a whole room full of them. But yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, we've kind of taken a different turn than the beginning of the movie. Let's see where it goes from here.
Yeah, and it's like, I'm not angry at it. I'm not mad at it. It's just, man, you could have kept going around with this.
I mean, I am angry that Holly takes out Frank.
Well, yeah, again, that feels like, shit, I need to get Frank out of the movie so it can just be Piper at the end. Well, Holly comes back. That's what it feels like. It feels like, shit, I need to tie up this whole movie in a neat bow to get the final shot I want. I guess we're gonna have to shoot through it. And that's like, that happens.
But
sometimes
justice for Frank, though. He's just like, yeah, I'll clear the hallway for you, make sure no one's coming. And then just, boom, he's down. Like, what?
Oh, man. That's...
I was like, no,
it's out of nowhere, I'll give you
no
that.
goodbye or anything. Just, gun to the temple and he's gone for good. It's just like,
he didn't even get an effect shot. It just flashes to white.
Yeah, I was just like, come on now.
I noticed that. Like, all the gunfire and all, like, the action bits, there's, like, no blood in this movie. Except for, like, after the fight where they're, like, beat up and bloody. Yeah. But there's no, like, oh, Piper just shot that guy with a shotgun. There's no, like, blood scripts. It's like an old Western. He was like, and, like, falls to the ground.
Or is it supposed to be because they're aliens?
They don't bleed.
They don't bleed the way that we would?
I don't know. That's
what I was trying to figure out. I'm like, is this, like, part of this character's characteristics? Or is this just, oh, okay, well, let's not worry about having to do, like, blood splatter or, fake blood or anything like that.
I guess that gets to the other thing about They Live. What's in the movie that you think doesn't work, like you don't like? Is it just that ending bit where it feels a little sloppy, or is there anything else in the movie you think is keeping it from being in that, like...
No, I think
Carpenter masterpieces.
No, I think it's just that ending part where it's like the first and the middle half of the movie were really tight, and then it felt like we kind of got like another movie kind of, meshed in there where it's just like really strong movie and then action movie.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of like, a little bit of your strength that you had just kind of seeped away, and we have like, action hero status, okay, we're running, we're stealing guns,
And suddenly, Nada and Frank are like sharpshooters, and they're always on, and they're like going through this office building like they're John McClane and Die Hard, and it's a thing where it's like, it feels like the real guy aspect got put away for the action hero aspect, but it's still a bombastic ending. I like the final shot in the movie where it's like, it's the girl and she's like riding the guy after the satellite's been gone, and he's like, what, baby, what's wrong? And it's the alien, and then she like, cuts to black and credits. I just think that's such a funny gag to go out on.
Oh no, mine was the news, where both the newscasters and everyone's just like, what was it? One person in the back like, oh my god, you look horrible.
Yep.
And she's like, what do you mean? And then, people are out, at restaurants, at bars, and they're starting to look and be like, oh my god, what are you sitting next to me?
Or the obvious Siskel and Ebert swipe where they're talking about shitty horror movies and violence in cinema. George Romero, John Carpenter movies.
I love that part. I was like, oh, I caught that. I was like, that's great. I'm like, leave it to John Carpenter to make fun of himself in one of his movies.
Well, he's making fun of Siskel and Ebert because they, like, hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Almost all of his movies.
But he's like, you know what? I'll leave that meme in there.
Just a little meme.
Ahead of his time. He's like, I understand the meme. Someday soon the kids will know what the memes are.
Okay. On that, I want to talk about John Carpenter's, career after They Live, but before we do that, final thoughts on They Live.
Well, I'm surprised you didn't talk about, the ending with John, with Nada.
His final middle finger to the audience, being like, "Hey, aliens, fuck you too." I love it because Nada, he dies. It goes into that kind of bleak ending, the dark ending Carpenter likes, but it's still a happy because he wins.
He wins. Yeah,
he dies, but humanity, they got one. And
but
I like that.
I read an interview with him where he's talking. He's like, I kind of regretted that last scene where, I flip off the aliens on the camera. He's like, yeah, I wish when I was, filming it, I had a much stronger middle finger so those aliens knew to fuck off. And I was just like, thank you, Rowdy.
Roddy Piper.
He's the best.
He really is. And, he did a lot of work after this and, but he never got the chance to be, the breakthrough leading man kind of thing.
Yeah.
That never happened until, The Rock. The Rock was the one who actually broke through and became, a movie star and proved wrestlers could do it. But, man, I feel like Roddy Piper was, he was almost there.
Yeah.
He could have gone, legitimate actor status and, made it work. But that's neither here nor there. But, yeah, They Live. I'm a 2 thumbs up on this one. I think it really is part of the Carpenter canon of great films. I think this is one of his best films. It has one of the best messaging. It has probably some of the strongest action beats, the strongest scenes. It's one of the great ones for him.
Ditto. And 2 thumbs up from me too.
But yeah, so that was They Live. And before we wrap up, John Carpenter's career.
Yes.
Because this is John Carpenter Month. We talked about his oeuvre of the 1980s, his basically his greatest hits.
Breaking out the $10 words.
I'm trying my best. So, we did Assault on Precinct 13.
Yes.
Escape from New York, The Thing, Starman, They Live. All right? Those were our 5 movies of the month. And thoughts on the run, on his, this half of his 1980s collection.
I really enjoyed it. There were some that I hadn't seen before. Yeah, I really enjoyed the run. I missed all the other movies that were part of this initial run, just we didn't have time to do everything.
Yeah, if we wanted to, this would be a 2 or 3 month long podcast.
Probably 3-month series. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Just, he didn't need more proof that he's a great director. I didn't need more proof that he's a great director. But it's just, you just watch more and more of his films, especially ones you've never seen, and you're like, he has so much talent. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, he had, even if you were, super stringent about it, and you're I only count Halloween up, that's still, that's 10 movies that are immaculate. I don't think any other director has a run this strong.
Yeah.
When the worst movie objectively in your run is Christine, that's a pretty good bar.
Well, I mean, considering the worst in his run was The Thing for a while. And then you can't talk about The Thing now without, people just jumping up, I love The Thing. Oh, it's my favorite movie.
Oh, it's a masterpiece. Oh, that's the great Lovecraftian horror film. That's the last great horror film.
Exactly.
That is the greatest 80s horror film. That movie got reclaimed and reclaimed hard. And that's kind of the story of Carpenter's career. For every movie that missed at the box office or missed with the critics, or all of the movies of this decade that missed, by the end of that decade, they had all been reclaimed by the fans as, no, these are great movies.
Yeah.
Every last one of them. Big Trouble in Little China, giant flop. Carpenter was like, I'm done with the studio system. I can't do it anymore. It's too much bullshit. And 10 years later, 20 years later, he's vilified. They're like, no, you didn't make a bad movie. You made a movie so far ahead of its time that we needed 2 decades to realize it.
Yeah.
The Thing. Yeah, everyone said it was a bomb with the critics. It was a bomb at the box office. Everyone said it was the worst film ever made. And again, 10, 15, 20 years later down the line, it has been reclaimed as a masterpiece. It is on the level of Halloween, The Exorcist, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, with some of the greatest horror films ever made. It's in the league with them. Almost all of them. And I feel like, man, he was so good in the 80s. And then the 90s happened. This is where it gets a little sad. I'm only going to mention it briefly, because I want to be holistic here. Because,
a little bit.
A little bit. Because here's the thing. John Carpenter, he does some of the greatest films of the 1980s, some of the best films ever. He goes into the 90s and he gets, taken by the Chevy Chase with Memoirs of an Invisible Man. That's the movie that broke him. It's his first objectively bad movie. Because everyone wanted Chevy to make a comedy. Chevy wanted to make a drama. And they couldn't commit to either one. So, ended up pretty bad. And after that, you get, vampires. You get Ghosts of Mars. You get some, Village of the Damned. Which, you get a lot of movies that are man, these are kind of mediocre to not really good anymore. What's going on, John? And it's kind of the thing where I think Carpenter realized that he couldn't make the movies he wanted to anymore, because every time he did, he got bit in the ass. And I think he started doing a lot more movies that he thought were safe career choices and financial choices that just didn't hold up all that well. Escape from LA, you would think, oh, that's the John Carpenter project. No, that was a Kurt Russell thing he wanted to do. And have you ever seen Escape from LA?
No.
It uses a lot of very bad 1994 CGI. Yeah. It also wastes Bruce Campbell, which, how do you waste Bruce Campbell in a movie?
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because Carpenter's last movie is The Ward from 2016.
Yeah, another.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing about The Ward, because when it came out, it was oh, this is a fun ghost story, but it's
it's got Amber Heard in it though, and she can't act even in a horror movie.
Well, that's the problem. At this point now, it has become a tainted film because of the Heard Depp trial thing, and it's because there's a group of people that are just I'll never watch an Amber Heard movie again.
Well, I mean, I watched a couple clips of it just to see, okay.
Does the Carpenter shine through? Can he still direct a movie?
Well, not that. It's just, can she pull this off? And it's just no, she can't. It's I've seen clips of other movies and it's just bad. So it's I feel maybe if they had casted somebody else, it would have done a little bit better, but it's just bro, Amber, you stunk it up.
Jesus. Well, but that's the thing. At this point, because Carpenter, I don't think he even wants to go back to making movies anymore, because he's having fun, playing his music, going on tour with his band, composing,
he's also doing comic books, too.
Yeah, he does comic book, he pairs up with people to do comic book, writing, and he does a lot of stuff now. I think it's a thing where, I think he finally said, fuck it. And he's I don't want to make movies anymore because they're so fucking difficult. Every time I made a movie for me, it bombed. Every time I tried to make something smart, they called me an idiot. Every time I tried to make something fun, they said I was a cynical jerk. It feels like John Carpenter had pushed back his entire career, and he's finally you know what? Fuck it. I'm done. Yeah,
but also, at the end of the day, John Carpenter is a king.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we learn about him in, film education classes. He is, one of the, of this era, this decade, he is one of the most renowned directors because he has just put out banger after banger after banger.
Well, that's the thing. It's because so many of those, those 90s independent cinema guys that came up, the Kevin Smiths, Tarantinos, Rodriguez's, they worship at the altar of John Carpenter.
Yeah.
Jordan Peele, somebody said, Jordan Peele, you're the best horror director ever. You're the master. And he said, I will not take this John Carpenter blasphemy in the face. Because even Jordan Peele is I worship at the altar of Carpenter.
Exactly.
Anybody making horror films now, I feel they owe some debt to Carpenter.
Absolutely. I mean, let alone the people that travel to go to the Michael Myers house.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to meet anybody there. You're not going to see anybody there. It is just a building that, houses a couple of other businesses. But because of, John Carpenter's work, people will travel to visit. He built it, and they are still coming.
Yes, he'd had his field of dreams with a man in a white mask and a butcher knife.
Yeah, but that's the genius of John Carpenter. He made a costume scary and not in the traditional sense. This person is relentless and will keep coming after me. He made a car scary.
Yeah.
He made a research team out in the middle of nowhere even more terrifying.
He's one of these guys that, and it really sucks because Carpenter is at his best when he is working against something. He's at his best when he's like short on cash, when the budget's dirt low and he has to be scrappy and has to scrounge around and he has to like really work for it.
Isn't that a quote from Starman? When he says that's the most beautiful thing about human beings. They are the best when they are, they have their back against the wall.
When you are at your best when things are at their worst. And that's Carpenter. He's at his best when things are at their worst, when he looks out onto society and he's like, things are bad, and he makes a movie that is so poignant that it's still talked about today, has been called prophetic, has been called more relevant than it was when it was made. He makes They Live, a movie that everyone said, this is the dumbest, vapid action film I've ever seen. It has no substance. And he's like, I literally made a movie that for 30 years has been the most relevant piece done on our society. Really.
And it's like, really. And if you don't realize that, maybe you're one of the imposters.
You're one of the sellouts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is the beauty of the John Carpenter canon, of the John Carpenter oeuvre, to bring out another $10 work.
Praise be John Carpenter. We love you.
But that wraps up John Carpenter Month. His 80s were great. His 90s were mediocre. His 2000s are non-existent. But that is the last episode of John Carpenter's miniseries. What are we doing next week, next month?
Well, before we jump on to that, usually with these roundups, we pick our favorite film of the roundup, because some of them were new to us. I think only one was new to you.
Yeah, Starman was the only new film for me, and it's jumped up on my Carpenter canon. I really like that movie.
So, since this is your month, what was your favorite film? I know you've seen most of these. I know what your favorite John Carpenter movie is, but maybe one of these kind of, shown a little bit brighter this month.
Again, The Thing is my favorite John Carpenter movie. I think it's the best movie he ever directed. I think it's a masterpiece. It is a wonderful, amazing, perfect film. But for the month, doing a rewatch on a lot of these that I haven't seen in a long time, and seeing, a movie that's new, I think the one that surprised me the most, that I thought was so good that I liked a whole hell of a lot, was honestly Starman.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was so surprised at how good that was. That was the most surprising one. So if I can't pick The Thing, I'd pick, like, Starman as my favorite of the month. If I couldn't pick The Thing.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, we started off really strong with Assault on Precinct 13. It was my first time seeing it, and just the feeling of Night of the Living Dead, but in a real sense. I was like, okay, this is just fucking awesome. And then Napoleon, I was like, oh my god, Cool Hand Luke. There's just so much going on. I fell in love with that movie. And then we got to Starman, and I was like, wow, you just really ripped the emotions out of me. And if you can make me feel, I'm sold. So I gotta pick Starman, because that was just a beautiful story. Just tore my heart out.
That I like that. Because Starman is one of those movies where I think that is one of the movies of Carpenter's run that I think so many people forgot about.
Yeah, because when you brought it up when we were doing the scheduling, I was kind of like, all right, like sci-fi romance, okay, whatever. And then it was just like, no, it's so deep, and just broke my heart. I was like,
and
oh my
Karen
god.
Allen is so good, and Jeff
She
Bridges
deserved
is
an
so
Oscar
good.
nomination.
They're so good in that movie. And it's a thing where it's really surprising how that's the movie that slipped through the cracks of time.
Yeah.
His arguably most successful film, nominated for an Oscar, played on TV for years. That's the one that all the fanboys like left behind.
Yeah.
They took all the ones that flopped, but left the one successful one.
It's like, no, come back, pick this one up, lift it onto your shoulders, because it's an amazing movie. So yeah, that would be my pick. If I can't pick Halloween, I will pick Starman for this month.
Of course. So now, as I was saying, what's next month?
Next month means new theme. Next week, we're starting October. The best month is finally here. We did it. We survived, which means that next month will be Monstober. And I am so excited. I've been waiting to do this month for months or since the beginning of the year, whenever we planned this out. I'm so excited. And we're going to be starting with a film that is near and dear to my heart that's fairly new. I saw this, I think, maybe before the pandemic. So it hasn't been with me for a long time. But
I mean, before the pandemic was like 4 years ago.
3-4 years ago. But I mean, it's not something I've been watching since childhood. So I can remember watching this for the first time. And I know you haven't seen this movie before.
I actually forgot what movie this is.
We're going to be watching The Monster Squad.
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, I've never seen The Monster Squad before. I have no context as to what the movie is. I know it's a kid's movie, and it's a comedy. And I know there's a line, Wolfman's got nards.
Wolfman's got nards, man.
Yeah, that's the only line in the movie. So I know it's like an 80s comedy?
That's even the name of the documentary about this movie.
Oh, God.
And the cult status, because this movie, at the time was kind of like, oh, whatever. It's, a bunch of kids that like, monsters. And it took a while, and it's become a cult film that people have just rallied behind and picked it up, and you're like, we love you. So I love it, and we're going to be talking about The Monster Squad next week.
Well, if they wanted to listen to that and keep up with it, where can they go?
Well, if you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and we're also on YouTube.
Yeah, you can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. We upload new videos every week. They're video versions of this podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, check out some of our back catalog. I believe when this episode drops, we should be releasing all of our Texas Chainsaw Massacre episodes. So go and check those out.
And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram at the Film Club Podcast, where we post daily stories, adventures, trivia, upcoming episodes, and a ton more.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at the Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.